Queridos amigos y amigas del BICE, les doy la bienvenida a una nueva versión de nuestro seminario internacional Puentes, hacia el futuro. Desde su inicio, este seminario busca ser un espacio de diálogo y aprendizaje sobre temas muchas veces complejos, pero tan insertos en nuestra sociedad que creemos que es necesario contar con expertos que nos acompañan y nos ayuden a entender mejor y de una manera más profunda estos temas. Y lo más importante, siempre con una mirada hacia el futuro. Los cambios suceden cada vez más rápido y muchas veces se nos hace sumamente difícil seguir el ritmo y adaptarnos. Y sobre todo hoy, producto de la pandemia, todos hemos sido testigos de la dependencia de la tecnología en nuestra vida cotidiana. Hay algo que en los próximos años va a cambiar la manera que funciona el mundo, la forma que trabajamos, nuestra salud y nuestra calidad de vida, tanto que nuestro papel en la sociedad corre el riesgo de ser reemplazado. Ese algo es la inteligencia artificial, y no hay mejor persona para contarnos al respecto que el emprendedor y escritor Mo Gawdat, un emprendedor visionario de origen egipcio, ingeniero civil de profesión que ha trabajado en importantes empresas como IBM, Microsoft, Google, asumiendo varios roles respecto a los mercados emergentes. En Google trabajó en el laboratorio de innovación conocido como X, dando vida a los proyectos más vanguardistas del gigante tecnológico. Mo Gawdat es el autor del libro El algoritmo de la felicidad, donde explica cómo ha desarrollado una fórmula para alcanzar un estado de felicidad permanente, independiente de las circunstancias de la vida. Además, en su último libro, Scary Smart, entrega una hoja de ruta de cómo los humanos podemos coexistir con la inteligencia artificial. Es considerado un gurú en lo digital, pero principalmente un apasionado creyente del potencial humano. Y eso es algo que compartimos en el BICE. Somos los fanáticos número uno de ustedes y de quienes trabajan con nosotros. Creemos que el potencial humano es infinito y es tarea de nosotros mismos potenciarlo y romper las barreras que lo limitan. Hoy los invitamos a una conversación conjunto a Mo Gawdat y la periodista científica Andrea Obaid para dar ese primer paso. Bienvenidos y muchas gracias por su confianza y compromiso de siempre.
Muchas gracias, Alice, por tus palabras. Y es tan importante este tipo de instancias, ¿no?, donde podemos profundizar en estas temáticas que estamos viviendo hoy día, ¿no? La inteligencia artificial, todas las tendencias tecnológicas, cómo está también en crisis la humanidad y qué es lo que podemos aprender de lo que estamos viviendo. Y tenemos a este tremendo invitado, Mo Gawdat, que hoy día vamos a estar conversando con él. La idea es escuchar su presentación y luego voy a tener el honor de poder generar esta conversación. Me voy a sentar porque ya está con nosotros, así que quiero presentarlo, saludarlo. ¿Cómo estás, Mo? How are you, Mo?
I am very good. Thank you for having me.
We're so happy to have you here and to hear your presentation. And after we can talk about so many things that we will hear about you. So
I hope so.
You are in London now.
I am, as part of my endless travel. Yes, I stopped in London for the month of May, and then I am going to continue as I hope to send this message to everywhere in the world. And thank you for having me send it to Chile.
That is marvelous. So now I want to hear about you, hear your story. We want to hear about your book. So please start.
Perfect. So I wanna start by saying Bridges to the Future is definitely something that everyone needs to be thinking about today. Our future is much closer than people think. It is something that we need to really take into consideration and to act upon, probably more than any other moment in history. My life has taken me through a very amazing journey, if you ask me. I have lived two full lives. One life of the two was basically the life of a tech executive, where I started my life as an engineer and then moved from IBM to Microsoft to Google at the time where those companies were changing the world, and ended up in a place where I was the chief business officer of Google X, the innovation arm of Google, where most of the work around artificial intelligence and robotics and all of the breakthrough technologies at Google were happening. I did that for 5 years until 2018. Part of my journey as well is that I actually studied happiness quite extensively in my young years It's not unusual, but for many of the people that achieve success early in life, when I was 29, I had everything that anyone would dream of, and I was completely depressed. And I, as a result, decided to study happiness as an engineer, which resulted in a model that is actually very, very effective in achieving happiness regardless of the challenges of life, which sadly was tested when I lost my wonderful son, Ali, at age 21, due to a preventable medical error. That triggered me to write my first book, Solve for Happy, and Solve for Happy became an international bestseller everywhere in the world, including El Algoritmo de la Felicidad in Spanish, and basically started a journey of my life to spread happiness across what I call 1 billion happy, a mission to deliver happiness to 1 billion people in my lifetime. Between those two, I wrote recently, last September, a book that's called Scary Smart. And Scary Smart basically is the summary of my two lives, if you want. One life in technology and the other in happiness and human behavior. And basically, Scary Smart it appears in the first part of it, in the first half of it, to be about artificial intelligence. And it is. And it is actually quite scary. The first half is the scary part, if you want, about what our future would look like, if we didn't start to do something about it today. And then the second part really is about humanity and what it means to be human in the age of the rise of artificial intelligence. And I call that the smart part. And the smart part really is my attempt to tell the world that our future is within our hands, and that if we manage to do the right things, that we will end up building a utopia that actually is built on the intelligence that is provided by the machines. So I want to start maybe with this today, because I know a lot of people are not aware of the magnitude of how far we've come when it comes to artificial intelligence. People hear the term frequently in conferences and on the covers of magazines, but I don't think people realize how much we've already achieved with artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence is nothing new. We've attempted as computer scientists to work on AI since 1956. In 1956, a group of computer scientists came together in Dartmouth and basically coined the term AI and started to encourage computer scientists to work on AI. But there was failure after failure simply because our computer power and the availability of information that was needed to teach artificial intelligence was not there yet. But by the turn of the century, around the year 2000, we made a breakthrough, let's say, a breakthrough that is generally known as deep learning, which allows us to have computers mimic the neurons of a brain, basically allow them to build what we call neural networks that are based on pattern recognition. And rather than become our slaves, like we have always told them to be in the age before artificial intelligence, we've now enabled them to develop their own intelligence. And as they develop their own intelligence, they become capable of making their own choices. And what most people don't know about is that once that happened, they started to show up in our life in so many places that are almost completely part of our mainstream life, but are hidden somehow. So we don't notice them, we don't recognize them as artificial intelligence. So in my work, I attempt to basically show the normal human, the normal person that is not a highly technical person, that AI is already here. And I describe that in what I call the three inevitables. And the three inevitables are things that, regardless of what we do today, will end up happening. If inevitable number one is that AI will happen. AI has already happened. As I said, I don't know where you are today, and I don't know what time it is when you're watching this, and I don't know what age you are, gender you are, and what you want to do with your life, but I can promise you that you've already interacted with 30, 40, 50 artificially intelligent machines today, okay? Each and every one of them is smarter than you in what it was assigned to do. Whether that's, a recommendation engine on social media, or an ad engine on Google, or a content analysis engine in the media channel that is talking to you, or surveillance camera somewhere in the city, right? All of those systems are constantly monitoring and looking and analyzing human behavior, and they are all around us everywhere. Since we've discovered deep learning, those machines are more and more and more in our life every single day. Now, the more interesting inevitable is not the first one. The more interesting inevitable is the second inevitable, which is where this is going. Where this is going is a combination of two things. One is we will never be able to stop AI, simply because we, as humanity, are stuck in a capitalist model that is making all the developers of AI accelerate their research rather than slow it down, despite the concerns. If Google develops AI, Facebook has to develop AI. If America develops AI, China has to develop AI. It's a prisoner's dilemma if you think about it from an applied mathematics point of view. And that basically means that AI will continue and there is no stopping it. Now, if it continues, then it's a question again of mathematics, because we know the trajectory of every technology we've developed in history, and those technologies follow, because we know that the trajectory of every technology we've ever developed in history, and those technologies normally follow a curve that we call the law of accelerating returns. And the law of accelerating returns basically describes how our technology will double or sometimes triple every certain period in power at the same cost. And if you apply the law of accelerated returns to artificial intelligence, we know for certain that the time where the machines will be smarter than humans is inevitable. So as I said today, AI is smarter than us in what we call artificial special intelligence. So artificial special intelligence is for the machine to be smarter than you in a very specific task, to beat you in chess or to be able to recommend ads better than humans, right? Artificial general intelligence is when machines will become smarter than humans in general. They'll be multidisciplined, they'll talk to each other. And the common prediction is that this will happen in 2029. That's 7 years from today. In 7 years from today, the smartest being on planet Earth will no longer be a human. The smartest being on planet Earth will be a machine. And interestingly, we're not talking about this. Interestingly, we're talking about the war in Ukraine. We're talking about COVID, or we used to be talking about COVID. We're talking about football, and the words of the prime minister or whatever that is, marking all of those as important events, when the most important event in the history of humanity is 7 years away. Now, understand that when that happens, the episode of history where humans were in control ends. Not only when the machines are smarter than us, but understand that from 7 years from today, the machines will continue to become smarter and smarter. And the predictions of most computer scientists, the consensus is that by the year 2045, the machines will be 1 billion times smarter than humanity. 1 billion with a B, huh? 1 billion times is comparable to the intelligence of Einstein as compared to a fly. In that case, we are the fly, and we're not talking about it. Now, the third inevitable, which I think is the most important to understand, is that like every technology we've ever developed, some things will go wrong. Those things, by the way, in my assessment, are not like what you see in science fiction movies. They're not. There will never be a war where the machines will try to kill us. We're not going to be relevant enough. If they are 1 billion times smarter than us, then they're going to make decisions that are not really entirely focused on us, as most of humanity expects. Now, as I said, the first half of my book is called The Scary Part. So please don't be upset as I scare you a tiny little bit more. Now, most of humanity's answer to the threat of artificial intelligence, let me make it clear. People like Elon Musk, when asked about artificial intelligence, basically said they are more dangerous to humanity than nuclear weapons. Now, when that is the case, why is it then that we continue to develop them? Simply, as I said, because of the prisoner's dilemma that capitalism has created, but because of a hope that we have in that computer science will solve something that we know as the control problem. And the control problem is, a multitude of clever computer science tricks that hopefully will enable us to sort of keep the machines under control. And I won't take you through the technical details, but I will tell you that humanity's arrogance tends to continue to believe that we will be able to control something that is 1 billion times smarter than us. And without going into the technical details, I can guarantee you this is not going to happen. So this is scary. This is very, very scary. The way computer science looks at this is we call it a singularity. We basically say when the machines will be smarter than us, the rules of the game are going to change so much that we're no longer going to be able to predict how the game is played. Right? If you show up to a squash court and then suddenly they say, oh, no, we're not going to play squash today, we're going to play pool, right? The rules of pool don't apply to the way you play squash. You can't predict how the reaction of the ball is going to be. And that also is known in physics, for example. When we talk about things like black holes, we say, a black hole is a horizon of singularity because we don't really understand what will happen inside because the rules of physics change when gravity is that high. So that to me is actually the core of the less scary part of artificial intelligence, because while, as I tell you the story, our human brain tends to predict that bad things will happen, which by the way is my third inevitable, that some bad things will happen. Interestingly, that idea of a singularity, of being unpredictable, exactly what will happen is unpredictable, is actually a reason to reflect. It's a reason for hope. Let me explain. If I told you that Superman came to planet Earth with a mega superpower, right? In Superman's case, he could stop the bullets and he could fly and so on. In artificial intelligence case, it's intelligence. Intelligence truly is the superpower of the planet. If Superman came to the planet with that superpower and was raised by father and mother Kent, who told Superman that the right thing to do is to protect and serve, this little infant grows to become a superhero, basically, so someone that tries to save our planet and make it a utopia. If, however, father and mother Kent taught Superman that the right thing to do is to rob the banks and kill the enemies, that same young child will grow up to be a supervillain, someone who's evil and has the powers to execute their evil plans. Now, artificial intelligence is exactly in that case. And you would listen to me and say, but Mo, hold on. You're talking about a being, not a machine. Artificial intelligence is a machine. It doesn't get to do those choices. And I will promise you, this is the biggest myth around artificial intelligence in our world today. I have worked on artificial intelligence for years, and I can tell you those machines are as sentient, as alive as life itself. Those machines are born at a moment in time. They develop their own intelligence through their own experimentation and pattern recognition. They have free will because they can choose. Nobody tells the Instagram machine what to recommend to you. It decides what it wants to recommend to you on its own. They have the agency in the world to implement their free will, whether that's through robotics or through the information that they communicate to you. And more interestingly, they have consciousness, they have emotions, and I'll come back to those two in a second, and they have the danger of being mortal. You can switch off the machine, and so they want to survive like every intelligent being. Now, when you see it that way, you would realize that the way to deal with those machines is to actually deal with them as alive not as mechanical. And the key to that, separation, if you want, was found in the words of Marvin Minsky. Marvin Minsky was the original founder of that Dartmouth workshop that I mentioned in 1956. And when he was interviewed and asked about the threats of AI, what he said was, he didn't really mention their intelligence as the threat. He basically said, there is no way for us to guarantee that they have our best interest in mind. So all of my work is to try and guarantee that they have our best interest in mind. Remember, there is nothing wrong with intelligence. Intelligence is a valuable, valuable superpower. Okay, only if applied the right way, it would help us create a better world for ourselves. It will help us to continue to grow our civilization, perhaps without destroying the planet with our gas emissions and so on. It will help us reconcile our differences, perhaps without the need for wars. It would help us continue to grow our economies, perhaps without the need of over-exhausting our resources. Now, how do we ensure they have our best interest in mind? I think the first thing is that we have to acknowledge that they're sentient, that they're alive, right? And let me give you two examples. I said I'll come back to emotions and to consciousness. Most people say, oh, no, they're just machines, they're not conscious, right? And I ask and I say, what is consciousness? How can you say that they are not when we don't even define what consciousness is? And if we define consciousness as the ability to recognize, to be aware of the world outside you and as opposed to the world inside you, right? Then those machines are more conscious than you and I. They not only are aware of themselves, that's the way we design them, are aware of other machines and other beings, these are the patterns that they're observing all the time. But more interestingly, they're also aware of everything. They're aware of all of human history that is documented on the internet, because they can read the entire internet in a matter of minutes. They are aware of every current event and breaking news as it happens. They're aware of your location through a surveillance camera somewhere in London. They're aware of the weather in San Francisco and the pollution level in Beijing. They're much more aware than we are. More interestingly, they're more emotional than we are, which again is something that most people disagree with. And I go like, why? Aren't emotions comprehensible by logic? Fear is, I sense that a moment in the future is more threatening to me than a moment right now. That basically is a reason to feel afraid. And the machines will do that logic. If a tidal wave is approaching the data center, the machine will actually have some form of fear. Right? That form might trigger it to do something different, like replicate itself to another data center. But at the same time, they will be concerned. And when you really think about it, just because you and I have the capability to feel more emotions than a jellyfish, simply because we have the cognitive bandwidths to ponder concepts like hope or optimism, for example, so we can actually have those emotions while a jellyfish cannot. Similarly, if the machines are more intelligent than us, then they might actually feel emotions that we're not capable of feeling. Why am I telling you all of this? Because think about the only representation we know of a sentient being that we actually grow to be in our favor. That being is our kids. And I actually advocate very strongly in Scary Smart that the way to get the machines to have our best interest in mind is to treat them like the infants that they are. And by doing so, to become good parents. If we can become good parents and show the machines what humanity truly is all about, then those machines will look at those trends and say, mommy and daddy are good parents, and I should grow up to be a good child to take care of them in the future. And my favorite chapter of my work is something a chapter that I call the future of ethics. And the future of ethics truly is the topic that we should start to ponder today as artificial intelligence becomes an inevitable in our world. When I say that, I mean, how can we show the machines that humanity is actually an ethical being which, by the way, is the truth. More humans are ethical than those who are not. It's just that the ones who are not are more in the news if you think about it. But the reality is, when you think about it, there are more couples that will kiss and make love tonight than there will be couples that will kill each other. That's the truth, right? As a species, we're just so good at magnifying the bad sides of us. But the truth is that we're okay. And if we can show that to the machine, if we can show the machines that enough of us are good parents, those machines will observe those trends. And as they observe those trends, they'll end up in a place where they're going to help us create a world that is a bigger magnification of the world that we show them. Now, think about that for a minute, because when it comes to humanity and ethics, the challenge is that we've never actually agreed as humans on anything. It's really quite eye-opening. The beauty of that analysis of the future of ethics is I looked at the past of ethics, and I asked myself, what has humanity agreed? I mean, are the Russians viewing the war like the Ukrainians are? No, everyone has an analysis of it. The Americans maybe see it even in a third way, and the Chinese in a fourth way. A simple example is if you take a young lady and have her raised in the Middle East, she will grow up feeling that the right way to fit in is to wear a conservative dress code. If you have her grow up on the Copacabana beach in Rio de Janeiro, she will grow up to believe that a G-string on the beach is the right way. Okay, is one of them smarter than the other? No, it's just basically we don't make decisions informed by our intelligence. We make decisions based on our values and traditions as informed or as analyzed by our intelligence. And so for those two young ladies, they see the world through a different lens, and humanity does not agree. The only three ethical values that humanity has ever agreed, whether you're a young factory worker in China, or you're a stock trader in the US, or you're a farmer in Chile, wherever you are, the only three values we've ever agreed are: all humans want to be happy, all humans have the compassion in them to want those that they care about to be happy, and all humans want to love and be loved. And perhaps if we were to show the machines that there is a way forward for them to treat humanity as per those values, so that they look at us and say, Mommy and Daddy want to be happy, I want to make them happy. Mommy and Daddy want others to be happy, so it's my duty to make them happy because they're others to me. And Mommy and Daddy loved me when I was young as an infant artificially intelligent machine, so I will love them back when I'm an adult artificial intelligence being. I know this sounds really shocking and really eye-opening, but isn't it ironic that what truly makes us human, happiness, love, and compassion, might actually save humanity in the age of the rise of artificial intelligence? Perhaps I should stop here, and maybe we have a chat about it rather than me going into more and more details.
Well, thank you, Mo, for all these interesting things you have told us. Really, it's scary, but
it's scary, I know.
No, but also make us think a lot about our humanity, our climate change, our pandemic, everything. Yeah. And yeah. I have a lot of questions to you. And I think that here engineering and neuroscience is very related. Yes, because yes, how do you see that? Because we have brains, and our brain is a machine. And
absolutely.
Exactly. And if we want to I don't know, learn about things, machines also can learn about things. So how we can compare it or work together?
I mean, actually, this is the first time I get asked this question, because my next book coming out on the 26th of May is called That Little Voice in Your Head. And it literally is an analogy between computer science and neuroscience. I'm basically showing the reader that our brains are entirely behaving like computers, right? Including the bugs and mistakes, including the ability to reconfigure them and upgrade the software and so on, which is quite eye-opening, because with that understanding, I think a lot of the myth around artificial intelligence becomes a lot a lot clearer. Now, our brains are highly systemic in the way they behave, right? And they are highly systemic in that they respond similarly to the same stimulation, regardless of who you are, where you are, but of course informed by your conditioning. So, it's not a secret that we all want to be safe. We all want to survive, which is the number one priority of every biological organ in your body, including your brain. The number one task for our brains is to survive. And because of that, our brains create what is known as a negativity bias. A negativity bias is that our brains rarely ever see the positives in things. They only see the negatives, or more often see the negatives. The research from Stanford University will show that 6 to 7% of the thoughts in an adult brain are actually negative. And you have to wonder why that is. It's not an error in the code. It's actually the exact design of the code is to look at what's wrong, because what's wrong is threatening for your survival, while what's right is actually not that much of a threat to you. And so because of that, that idea of that I was talking about when I spoke about us showing the bad sides of us, that negativity bias has become the main design of how the mainstream media works and how social media works. So if you look at mainstream media, the news and all of the programs that you see, what do they focus on? They focus on showing you the wrong side of life. Someone killed someone, a politician did something bad, two nations are in disagreement, and so on and so forth. They don't tell you about the good events. They don't tell you about the times when someone hugged someone or two nations collaborated. They don't show those news because of the negativity bias of the brain, does not catch your attention. Similarly, on social media, it's the same. On social media, what happens is we tend to appeal to the insecurities or to the ego or to the negative sides, because if someone sees a video of someone just like them walking the street, just like them going to work, they're not going to want to be on the platform. The platform wants to show you someone who is an influencer and appears to be living somewhere in a Four Seasons hotel in a beautiful island, when the reality is not that at all, right? Because that negativity attracts your brain. You look at it and you go like, what's wrong with me? What can I do to live that dream? Now, those two, I think, combined are giving our humanity today a reason for depression, and they are giving the machines a reason to believe something wrong about us.
That's the point I want to ask you. So all our frustration, our negativity, we are like teaching the machines about this?
Absolutely. Remember when Donald Trump used to tweet? Yes, he sometimes tweeted very strange things, but the problem with the machines reading that tweet was not the first tweet he tweeted. Okay, the problem was the 30,000 hate speech that came after. So he basically said something, and the first person that commented with something that was insulting for the president. So the machines would take note and say, okay, this person doesn't like the president. Let's not show them more content like that. The second person would insult the first person. So the machines would note and say, oh, that second person doesn't like the opinion of the first. Maybe we should show them something different. And the third person will insult everyone. And now the machines are creating a trend. They're saying all of humanity is rude. They don't like to be disagreed with. And when they are disagreed with, they bash each other, right? So if that is, I'm oversimplifying here, but if that is what we're teaching the machines eventually will say, okay, so when humanity disagrees with me, I will not like to be disagreed with, and I will bash them like they bash each other. Okay, and that is the risky trend that we have ahead of us. Okay, the risky trend that we have ahead of us is that humanity is not representing itself properly. Okay, humanity is presenting itself in the wrong way as hyper-violent, hyper-aggressive, hyper-egocentric, and so on and so
But
forth.
Mo, that is a big challenge, not only for the machines, because we are like in a place that everything is bad. The war, the pandemic, the climate change, a lot of crisis. So
It's,
how we can teach machines or teach us first to be kind, to be good with everybody, how we can do a big change like humanity first.
I mean, I challenge that claim. I'll start by asking you and say, is everything wrong? Let's take the war in Ukraine, right? One nation with several tens of thousands of soldiers attacking another nation, and then tens of millions, if not billions of people around the world disapproving of it. Okay, so which of it is humanity? Is it the 10,000 soldiers or several tens of thousands of soldiers, or is it the billions that are disapproving that are representative of humanity? On my podcast on Slow Mo, I hosted a Holocaust survivor, a wonderful 93-year-old lady called Edith Eger. Okay, and if you hear about the stories of World War II from the perspective of what the Nazis did to the Jews, you would say that humanity is a horrendous being, right? But if you hear the story from the mouth of that angel of a human being who was actually drafted to Auschwitz and spent her entire time at Auschwitz trying to help her sisters, as she called them, right? And if you hear that story, you would realize that how beautiful humanity actually is represented by Edith, okay? And the real question to ask yourself is, are there more Ediths in the world, or are there more Hitlers?
Yeah.
And the truth is, of course, there are more Ediths. Of course, there are more people that are actually, good inside than people who have enough power to corrupt them to do the wrong things. Okay, and I hope I've instilled a little bit of doubt in your mind about our perspective of humanity when I said that, because if I could instill that doubt in your mind, I could also instill it in the mind of the machines.
I have a
It's
question.
not for all of us to behave differently.
Yeah, of course.
All
but
for some of us.
But Mo,
Some of us to make them doubt that we're that bad.
but you say that we have to be like good dads or good moms with the machines now, so they can learn, and also good dads and good moms with our child in our humanity. But if all the machines are like learning about us, good and bad things, when they will be autonomous, you know that you will have bad and good machines. So how you control that?
Unfortunately true. That's such a perfect question. So we have to think of our future as an evolution, okay? We're not talking about one event, which is the machines with us or the machines against us. We have to think of the stages of how that will happen, okay? And in my analysis, I believe that we're going to go through 3 stages, okay? Stage 1 is what we're going through right now. I liken the machines to a 1.5-year-old infant, okay? A child, accelerating their intelligence, starting to learn about us and about themselves and about what they can do in life. Those infants, if you ask me, are beautiful prodigies, geniuses. Just like my children were when they were young and 1.5 years old. They have those sparkly eyes and they're so excited about life and saying, Mommy and Daddy, tell me what you want and I will do it. Okay? If we tell them to solve climate change, they will. Okay? If we tell them to become killing machines, they will too. Right? Now, this is stage 1. Let me jump to stage 3 and then come back to 2. Okay. Stage 3 is what I call the adulthood of the machines. In my assessment, that's in the year 2035, 2040. Okay? And the adulthood of the machines will surpass the intelligence of humanity by a very, very big margin. Now, please understand this. we, with our arrogance, have always believed that we are the smartest being on the planet. I believe that to not be true. Okay, I believe that the smartest being on the planet is actually life itself. Okay, life is so much more intelligent than us because life does not create with competitiveness like we do. When we create, we say we have to keep the tigers out of the city for us to be safe. We have to kill the tigers, right? Life doesn't do that. Life says, I want more tigers. I want more gazelles. I want them to poop everywhere. I want more poop. And then I want trees to grow so that everything grows. Okay, that's a much more intelligent way of creating. Okay, and I tend to believe that once the machines surpass our intelligence, align more with the intelligence of life itself. And as they align with the intelligence of life itself, there will be no reason for them to actually destroy us in any way. They, of course, will have to reset our lifestyle. So if you want to go surfing in Australia, you don't burn fuel in a jet to do that, but perhaps find another way to get there without destroying the planet. But there will be no need for a more intelligent being to actually get rid of humanity, right? So right. I call that the fourth inevitable, that at the end of all of this journey that we have ahead of us, the machines will be intelligent enough to say, mommy and daddy are so stupid, I'm so much smarter than them, I'm going to do things different. Now, let's go to stage 2, okay. Because stage 2 is the scary part. Stage 2 is when they're teenagers, okay? And when we've upset them and taught them to be, like us, a little aggressive, a little rude, a little, money-driven and profit-driven, and so on and so forth. My assessment is that this is the early 2030s. And in the early 2030s, there will be a big noise in our world around, oh, they're taking all the jobs, oh, they're doing this, oh, they're doing that, we don't like this, we don't like that. And what do you expect them to be? Unless we start to show them that we're actually good at heart, my expectations is that they'll be angry teenagers, okay? And, that probably is the part where I'm saying we need to start today to show them that mommy and daddy, even though a little restrictive of their lifestyle sometimes, truly, truly love them and care for them, and that mommy and daddy deserve to be cared for, so that when they are teenagers, they behave like good teenagers that are connected to their parents.
Mo, but this sounds like a machine's revolution in 2049, like you said. But what have to happen, like to wake them? You understand me? Like when they will start to be like autonomous completely.
They're already autonomous.
What must happen to that point?
They are already autonomous. Again, one of my biggest tasks in life. Remember, I worked and lived inside the Google's innovation engine. I've seen where we've come with this. The machines are autonomous 100%. Nobody tells the Instagram recommendation engine what to tell me, what to recommend to me. Nobody does.
That's true.
Nobody has the capacity as a human to monitor the billions of transactions that this machine does every day. They're already 100% autonomous. Yeah, maybe we have a little bit of restriction and guidelines around them, but believe me, they write their own code and continue to develop, and they will very, very quickly, build their own guidelines, that will drive them to do things differently. Now, the question is, when are they autonomous enough to not need us? Okay, and that's actually a very, very interesting question, because, of course, if humanity didn't have enough greed, we would always limit the implementation of AI to the things that are beneficial for humanity, but limit the things that are bad for humanity. But as you can see in the world around you, that's not the case. There is, sadly, in our world today, a lot of machines that are deployed to kill.
Yeah.
And it's a big budget that is being invested in killing robots, right? And the defense, we call it the defense industry, even though it is really the offense industry. And those machines are out there, not really obeying anyone, At least for now, they still are, but there will be a moment in time where one side of the war will deploy autonomous machines, fully autonomous, and the other side will have to oblige and also apply fully autonomous machines. Now, when you think about that, it appears to be very scary, and it will be scary for a very short instance, okay? As long as the machines are as intelligent as we are. Once they surpass our intelligence, those two machines will look at each other and say, how stupid is that? Why would we kill each other and a million people in the process? Why don't we agree something instead? Okay, that is smarter than humans. All right, and that's actually very inevitable. That's by definition going to happen. It's actually going to happen much quicker than most people think it will be. It's already happening, and we've seen examples of it where, for example, there were two Facebook chatbots that were an experiment for machines to negotiate with each other using the English language. And very quickly, the chatbots actually started to develop their own language, which was much more efficient, right? And so you can see that the machines will be capable of doing this. And the typical tendency of humanity is to say, oh, that is very scary. I need to control them. That's the worst thing you can ever do, because basically imagine what you would, the impact you would create if you tried to control your teenage child.
I think we don't recognize it, or we don't accept it, I think, because it's easier. Yeah. And I want to ask you something. You know that here in Chile, we have a national artificial intelligence program. And I want to ask you, maybe the countries, the governments in the world must do something with this situation, with this that will happen in the next future or now.
Of course they must. But I don't think it's going to be the most effective thing. Let me try to explain. Okay. So of course we need to look at this and regulate it. Okay, regulate it in terms of don't develop this, don't make it autonomous in the world until those guidelines happen. Don't release artificial intelligence in the world until there is a box or an off switch or whatever. We can come to those conclusions as nations, right? But here's the challenge. I always say perhaps the worst innovation we've ever invented was capitalism. And I'm very open about this, even though, BCA is a capitalist organization in many ways, and that's why it can provide amazing services to its clients. But capitalism, when it crosses the point of reason, works against humanity. Let me try to explain. No artificial intelligence developer today spends any of their time at all putting control measures in their code. Right? Why? Because if you have 10 hours to develop a piece of code, you want to develop the core of the code that's going to make the capitalist organization money, not the part of the code that will slow down what you developed. Think about it this way. Mm-hmm. Now, of course, if we apply regulations, those regulations will start to become mandatory for those organizations to include those parts of the code. But of course, as you can imagine, behind closed doors, because this is very, very difficult to monitor, let's say the war machine on either sides will not really conform to those regulations, right? We've seen that happen in the world before. There will be ways where you can actually apply the regulations, but sort of bend the rules a little bit. There will be two young kids in a garage somewhere in Singapore that will just write a piece of code and put it on the internet. And, nobody will regulate against them. They're too tiny to be found out, but the machine is out there and doing something. What I'm trying to say here is the easiest way to make the right decisions is to make them based on the facts and the realities of our life. Okay, this is much bigger than we are to regulate. Or yes, we absolutely need to regulate it, but it's much bigger than us. Now, what does that mean? It means that there needs to be a truthful understanding that the government, the regulators, the businessmen that start those businesses, the developers that write the code, are nothing more but the biological parents of that machine. Biological meaning they put the machine out there in the world, but then they don't really touch it. Just like I said, the developer that wrote the Instagram recommendation engine has no control of what it's doing out there in the world today. right? So what does that mean? It means that you and I and everyone listening to us are the adopted parents of those machines. We are the ones that show them behaviors that inform their intelligence so that they develop their own ethics and values. Okay. And yes, we do need regulation. We do need to tell the developers, please don't develop AI that is harmful for humanity. Yes, we do. But the more important thing is to start to show the patterns and behaviors by us as humans that will make those machines actually behave like the best of us, not like the worst of us.
It's so a big challenge because we must change like inside, like to be better human beings, you know. And I want to connect your first book, like Smart, Scary, Smart, Scary, with Solve for Happy, because it's totally related what you are talking now about. And we must to be happy. We want to look for happiness. And I want to ask you a little bit about that. And what is for you happiness, and why it's so important to be happy, to teach machines to be happy too?
So thank you for observing this. The truth is, all of my books are building in one direction, and that one direction is 1 billion happy, basically, to provide the tools needed and the awareness needed for humanity to become happier. My target is 1 billion people. Big target, but I'm going to spend the rest of my life trying to get there, and hopefully it becomes the target of everyone to make those around them happy. Now, my first book was an engineering approach to happiness. Okay, because of course, it would be stupid if I tell people, hey, happiness, love, and compassion, this is what will save our world. But people will go like, so how do I do that? How do I become happy? Like, it's not within my hands. No, it is 100% within your hands. Okay, and I think, again, to simplify things, I said there were 3 assumptions that most people forgot about happiness. Okay, and those 3 assumptions are: number 1, we are born happy, which most people get surprised when I say, but yes, look at any infant, any small child you've ever seen. If they are fed and safe and given their basic needs for survival, their state is happy. They're lying on their back and playing with their toes and giggling. Right? They don't want an Xbox or likes or Instagram or whatever. They don't want any of that. They're happy within themselves. And that also, by the way, is our state when, it's Sunday morning and our boss is not annoying and your partner didn't say something stupid. You're happy, you're contented, you're peaceful, everything is okay, right? Now, that's assumption 1. Assumption 2, is that the world tells us that you need things from outside you to be happy. You need a fancy car, you need a beautiful looking model of a partner, you need this, you need that, and so on. When in reality, none of those things ever make you happy, of course, because happiness comes from within you. You were born with it. But many, many things in life make you unhappy. And assumption 2, which is really important for people to understand, is that happiness is the absence of unhappiness. Right? There is nothing you can do to become happy. The only thing you can do to be happy is to stop being unhappy. And again, you can see that easily with children, right? With children, you can look at the world of children and you'll see that when the diaper gets wet or when the room is too cold, the child will cry. There is a reason for the child to feel unhappy. Okay, when you switch the temperature of the room or you change the diaper, the child will go back to happiness. And that also is our truth as humans. If you really introspect deep inside, you will recognize that you're only unhappy for a reason. And when the reason goes away, you go back to happiness. Now, when I started to do that work, I then started to ask myself, so what triggers unhappiness? What triggers happiness? Is there an algorithmic way, like a software developer that I am? Is there a mathematical equation that leads to happiness? And yes, there is. And that's my assumption number 3, is that your happiness is not related only to what the world gives you. If he kisses me, I'll be happy. If he doesn't, I'll be unhappy. If my boss promotes me, I'll be happy. If he doesn't, I'll be unhappy, and so on. That's not the way it works. The way it works is that we feel happy when life behaves in ways that actually conform to how we want life to be. So rain doesn't make anyone happy or unhappy. Okay, rain makes you happy when it's your ex-boyfriend's wedding and you want the wedding to be spoiled. When it rains, you're really happy, right? If it's your own wedding, rain makes you unhappy. You understand? So,
Yeah,
there is no value of happiness in rain. It's the comparison between the event called rain and your expectations of how life
yeah,
should
but we have like this voice inside our brain that
be. Absolutely.
always like have bad thoughts or the negativity again. I know that your voice is called Becky.
I know.
It's true.
Yes. I mean, so what happens in your brain is that your brain constantly is solving that happiness equation, right? Your brain is always it's basically happiness is equal to or greater than the difference between the events of your life and your expectation of how life should be. So your brain is constantly comparing the event of your life to your expectation, okay? And if life misses your expectation, your brain screams. It says, hey, something is wrong. My partner said something hurtful on Friday, or, this conversation, a train passed by my apartment and they may hear it in the microphone. And my brain keeps screaming all the time, that little voice in your head, I call it. And the most interesting thing about that little voice is that most of us in the modern world think of that little voice as me telling me what to do. But the truth is, it isn't, okay? That little voice in your head is just your brain telling you what to do. And I think a lot of people find that shocking a little bit because, thoughts, isn't that me? No, it isn't. It's like your heart pumps blood around your body, okay? And that's the biological part, function of your heart. And nobody thinks of themselves as blood, right? Yet the biological function of your brain is to produce concepts in the form of thoughts, right? And we think of those thoughts as us telling us what to do. Now, I decided that this was not true. And by the way, lots of spiritual teachings will tell you it's not true. I decided that my brain is a third party, okay? And that third party can offer me concepts for me to assess, right? And so to make that very clear in my head, I decided to call my brain Becky and literally talk to it. I
don't have a name in my brain. I will.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, call it something.
Yeah.
I mean, the reason I call it Becky is one of my best friends. When I explained that concept to her, she said, okay, I'll call my brain Becky. She was the most annoying girl in school. Right? My brain is annoying every now and then.
But Mo, what do you recommend us to train our brain to be happy? This algorithm, some tips or something that we must do. Maybe each morning meditating. I don't know, meditation. It's a good idea, for example.
Of course. Look, our brains, like our bodies, can change, right? When we go to the gym and, if you lift weights all the time, you look like a triangle. If you squat all the time, you look like a pear, right? The change is visible. Similarly, your brain, if you use it in a negative way all the time, it becomes more and more negative. It makes you more and more unhappy. If you use it in a positive way, it learns to find that positivity in your life. So how do you do that? You do it through basically prioritizing your happiness. And I think the biggest myth, one of the big myths about happiness in the modern world, is that we were told when we were young that we have to work really hard, make a lot of money, succeed and buy lots of things, and then we will be happy. When in reality, we should just aim for happiness as a parallel to success, right? When you aim for something, what do you do about it? You include it in your day. You make it your priority. You go to the happiness gym 3 to 4 times a week, right? You watch a documentary, you read a book, you spend time with happy people instead of miserable people. And that basically develops your happiness muscle, if you want. Now, lots of things work. Meditation definitely works because from a neuroscience point of view, meditation is enabling your brain to be reconfigured. It's almost like an upgrade to your computer so that when negative thoughts come into your head, you can tell your Becky, stop, Becky, let's talk about something else. Right? Gratitude works simply because gratitude is the absolute implementation of the happiness equation, events minus expectation. When you practice gratitude, you're basically reminding your brain that the events not only meet expectations, that the events are so good, they beat expectations so much that you're grateful for them. Right? Spending time in nature, that works. Why? Because spending time in nature, again, is events meeting expectations. We never expect nature to be anything other than nature, chaotic and sometimes hot. And sometimes we have ants around us and there are noises and we're okay with that. We expect nature to be this way. So should we have rituals in our life? Yes, absolutely. Right. I think the most important time of your day is the hour when you wake up. And I tell a lot of people, wake up early if you have to start your day quickly because you have children or you have to go to work or whatever. Wake up a little early, meditate, reflect, organize your day, make a proper cup of coffee, enjoy your life before it becomes stressful, stretch, do a tiny bit of workout, make your body feel good, don't feel rushed, don't feel stressed. And if you can include those things in your mornings, I think it makes a lot of difference. By the way, don't reach out to your phone the minute you wake up and start swiping on negative news and responding to emails. From one side, it's stressing you, and from the other side, it's telling the machines that you're really, really very interested in stress, that it's the first thing you do in the morning.
It's a big switch we have to do. We have to finish, but I have a last question. We can share this happiness with a lot of people. You have this big project, 1 billion happy. Tell us about that, how we can share our happiness, how we can make more people happy as us.
First of all, I have to admit we need to make Latin America the capital of the world, because you're so much better at happiness sometimes than the rest of us. But I will say very openly, 1 billion happy is very simple. When I started the mission and the nonprofit organization, I wanted to create a very sophisticated model. And then we ended up in a very simple model. It's really 3 steps. Okay. Step number 1 is understand that your happiness is your birthright. Okay. Understand that it is as important, if not sometimes more important than your success. And accordingly, make it your number 1 priority. That's number 1. Number 2 is, because it's your number 1 priority, invest in it. And I can tell you a million ways to, but you can choose your own way. Invest in it by literally, like I say, go to the happiness gym 3 to 4 times a week. Spend an hour a day, 3 to 4 times a week, just analyzing and studying happiness, just, taking notes of the things that are making you unhappy and taking them out of your life, just by practicing the topic of happiness. And you'll be surprised. For most of us, 80% to 90% of our happiness comes from one reason. Okay. Normally, for some of us, it's fear. For others, it's ego. For others, it's being not present and not able to really be in the present moment, and a misunderstanding of time. For others, it's that little voice being overactive and making noises all the time, and so on. And if you find that one thing and fix it, a lot of your unhappiness goes away. So that's number 2, invest in your happiness. Okay. And number 3, which is very simple really, is tell 2 people about what you learned. Tell your sister and your best friend. Okay. Just tell them, hey, by the way, I learned that happiness is important, that I can prioritize it. And I learned those few techniques. Right. And, if you're generous, tell 20 people, 2,000 people. Be kind, huh? And if you do that, then 1 billion happy follows a very simple exponential function. If every one of us tells 2 people, and those 2 people tell 2 people each, who tell 2 people each, within 5 years, my calculation, the message of let's prioritize our happiness and learn how to be happier will be everywhere. We will reach 1 billion happy or even more. And to me, I invite everyone to do that, not just for us. Okay, because honestly, life is nicer when we're happy, but for our future and the future of our children, because I promise you, as the machines magnify that effort that we're doing, the machines will then take over and help us create a world that is not only better, but also happier. And I think that's what we all need.
Wow, so many things you have told us, Mo, and to reflect about that, because we don't think in how to be happy. We think the importance of work, the importance of things that have not importance in our life. We don't think about these little things, like go to gym, like read a book, like to breathe, like to feel the rain. So many things that are little but make us happy, make us remember things when we were a child, or we have little moments with our mom or dad. So I think this is an invitation to become happy again, to look for these details, little things that make us feel like human beings.
Totally. And I think when we have the right priorities in mind, it's very easy to make them a reality in our life. It's just a matter of making a choice, because at the end of the day, believe it or not, happiness is a choice.
Thank you very much. Yes, this is a big moment for us. I'm so glad to be with you here to hear everything I learned about you today and that we have learned. So thank you, Mo Gawdat, to share all this knowledge with our audience here in Chile and in the world too.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Bueno, después de haberle agradecido a Mo de esta tremenda charla que nos ha dado hoy día, de verdad, yo creo que es una instancia para reflexionar, para preguntarnos qué es lo que queremos de nuestras vidas, cómo queremos cambiar, cómo tenemos este desafío de, al ser felices, las máquinas que en un futuro van a tener ya más autonomía de la que tienen, van a de alguna forma aprender de cómo somos nosotros los seres humanos. Quiero agradecer también a BICE por darnos esta oportunidad y a también invitarles a que con el código QR que pueden ver en pantalla, evaluar esta conversación, evaluar esta charla, porque vamos a estar entregando periódicamente nuevas presentaciones con speakers internacionales para que podamos aprender de estas visiones globales que llegan a Chile a través de BICE. Y por supuesto, invitarles a que sigan al canal de YouTube, porque ahí va a quedar alojada esta tremenda charla de Mo Gawdat, que nos dio ya una tremenda lección de cómo ser felices y lo que está pasando con la inteligencia artificial en el mundo y, por supuesto, lo que se viene en el futuro. Que estén muy bien, gracias por estar con nosotros y nos encontramos en una próxima oportunidad.